President Trump speaks about events in Charlottesville on Saturday in Bedminster, NJ. Jim Watson, Agence France Presse via Getty Images. One of the difficult but primary duties of the modern presidency is to speak for the nation in times of tragedy. A space shuttle explodes. An elementary school is attacked. The Twin Towers come down in a heap of ash and twisted steel. It falls to the president to express something of the nation's soul: grief for the lost, sympathy for the suffering, moral clarity in the midst of confusion, confidence in the unknowable purposes of God. Not every president does this equally well, but none have been incapable. Until Donald Trump. Trump's reaction to events in Charlottesville was alternately trite, come together as one, infantile, very, very sad and meaningless. We want to study it. There are so many great things happening in our country, he said, on a day when racial violence took a life. At one level, this is the natural result of defining authenticity as spontaneity. Trump and his people did not believe the moment worthy of rhetorical craft, worthy of serious thought. The president is confident that his lazy musings are equal to history. They are not. They are babble in the face of tragedy. They are an embarrassment and disservice to the country. The president's remarks also represent a failure of historical imagination. The flashpoint in Charlottesville was the history of the Civil War. Cities around the country are struggling with the carved stone legacy of past battles and leaders. The oppression and trauma that led to Appomattox did not end there. Ghosts still deploy on these battlefields, and the casualties continue. But Trump could offer no context for this latest conflict. No inspiring ideals from the author of the Declaration of Independence, who called Charlottesville home. No healing words from the president who was killed by a white supremacist. By his flat, foolish utterance, Trump proved once again that he has no place in the company of these leaders. Ultimately, this was not merely the failure of rhetoric or context, but of moral judgment. The president could not bring himself initially to directly acknowledge the victims or distinguish between the instigators and the dead. He could not focus on the provocations of the side marching under a Nazi flag. Is this because he did not want to repudiate some of his strongest supporters? This would indicate that Trump views loyalty to himself as mitigation for nearly any crime or prejudice. Or is the president truly convinced of the moral equivalence of the sides in Charlottesville? This is to diagnose an ethical sickness for which there is no cure. There is no denying that Trump has used dehumanization, refugees are animals, Mexican migrants are rapists, Muslims are threats, as a political tool. And there is no denying that hateful political rhetoric can give permission for prejudice. It acts as a psychological lubricant, says David Livingston Smith, dissolving our inhibitions and inflaming destructive passions. As such, it empowers us to perform acts that would, under normal circumstances, be unthinkable. If great words can heal and inspire, base words can corrupt. Trump has been delivering the poison of prejudice in small but increasing doses. In Charlottesville, the effect became fully evident, and the president had no intention of decisively repudiating his work. What do we do with a president who is incapable or unwilling to perform his basic duties? What do we do when he is incapable of outrage at outrageous things? What do we do with a president who provides barely veiled cover for the darkest instincts of the human heart? These questions lead to the dead end of political realism, a hopeless recognition of limited options. But the questions intensify. Read more from Michael Gerson's archive, follow him on Twitter or subscribe to his updates on Facebook.